Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Chasing Creativity. This is Kiran Manral. Today I have a wonderful guest with me. She's changed careers completely and become a chef. And after that, she's done something even more unusual. She's become a poet. Welcome to the show, Maria.
I think I just suffer from multiple personality disorders. Maybe it's just that.
Or maybe it's just a wealth of talent that doesn't know where to go and keeps finding various outlets.
Probably it's that. That's a nicer way to look at it. Thank you.
I'm very curious, Maria. You started off in the glamour world as a VJ. Oh, back in the day when it was the first, you were the first batch of VJs that came up.
Were.
And there were no precedents for that kind of a career. So how did that happen and what made you decide that, okay, was it just like, this has come to me, so let me take this up kind of a thing? Or did you think that there was going to be a future career in the show business?
No, actually, I think at the time that I went for the VJ hunt, I was called for the VJ hunt exactly 1 week before it was going, there was a stage performance. So I found it a bit bizarre and I said, this is too odd. I've not applied. And they've called me in last minute. Maybe, they need fillers and they know who is going to win. And so I was not very keen on going. And my sister told me, she said, I think you should just go. Think of it as 1 week of fun. You'll meet so many new people and like-minded people probably. And I think you should go for it. So that's how I took part.
Okay.
Before that, I was actually, I was studying at Sapphires and I was doing fashion design.
Mm-hmm.
I did a year of fashion design. But in the middle of all this, I was doing a whole lot of modeling.
Mm-hmm.
I was hosting shows. I remember I was working with Z. I did something for them called Fans Life and You, which was basically, it was a hosting interview-based show that had to do with pop stars, Indian pop stars in India. And I remember they wanted to take it out to London. And I went to college and I asked my ma'am there and told her, I said, listen, I need a month off.
This is Sapphires.
This is Sapphires. And she said, why? I said, because I have been doing this show while I have been studying with you. But now I need to go out. And I need a month because I can't go to London and come back. We'll be doing a whole lot. I said, and I could have just not come and given you a medical certificate and said I was sick. But I didn't want to do that. I'm telling you the truth. This is it. She told me, she said, you are late on a garment. Finish it. So I ran, we used to all run down from Sapphires to Anwar Ali's, I think. So I bought my fabric, I rendered it, did all my paper cuttings, given my paper cuttings, everything. And I remember, I think college used to get over at 4. And by 3, I had given her the garment, given her the rendering, given her everything. I finished everything like she asked. And she called me to the office and she told me, you need to clear your cupboard and you need to go. So I was like, I've done everything that you asked. You want the garment, I've given it back, everything. And she sat me down and she told me, she said, why are you here? She said, why are you here in this college? I said, because I want to be I want to be a fashion designer. She told me, she said, then you don't need to be here because as far as garments are concerned, you do that really well. She said, this is your second year here. I've seen you for the first year. She said, Maria, you need to go out. There's something bigger and better waiting for you and you need to leave. I have sat at her feet. I've held her feet and I've cried and I told, Jyoti ma'am, don't throw me out. I really want to do this. And she said, no, you need to go. She said, you really, she said, you don't need this. You're wasting your time. You need to go. And I did not know. Now how to tell my mom that.
What did mom say?
So I went back home and I was leaving that night. Okay. So there was nothing. So I went back home and my mom said, she said, you're leaving tonight. So I said, yes. My mom was very used to me traveling for work. And, I used to be doing ad films and I used to be doing this for quite some time. So she was very used to me doing this. So I said yes. She said, so what about, what is college? What is this? So I said, I'm not in college anymore. I mean, I'd finished my grad. This was post that. And she was like, what? What are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I'm going to London. I'll come back and I'll figure it. So I went to London, and as things would turn out, it was disastrous. I worked with the worst producer, director of my life. He had nothing there. He had lied to Z. There was no arrangements made. And I was thinking, where have I landed? And I've just lost college for this. So I put my foot down. I said, I'm not working with you anymore, and I'm going back. And he said, if you do that, he said, you will be banned, and I'll see that you never work again. And I just looked at him and I was thinking, oh my God, this is such rubbish, but I'm just leaving. So I did. I came back, and I did many more shows after that with Z.
Did you go back to college?
And no, I didn't go back to college. And I somehow got a lot of work hosting on television. I would learn my Hindi script and I would just say to camera. There were no teleprompters in that day and age. You had to do your own homework, you had to do your own research. I worked with this lovely woman called Nandita from Z. And I'll never forget, I used to do this weekly entertainment guide. And she used to, one of the words in the script was Hali Mein. And I never knew for the longest time in my life what Hali Mein meant. But it used to be in every show, so I learned that really well. And we used to do guerrilla shooting where sometimes she would say, Maria, stand there in the middle of the road, and as traffic stops, you start. So she would be somewhere else, I would be somewhere else.
Oh, that's nice.
And then I kept doing this. Then I remember I did another show with Brian and Brian Tellis. It was a music show in this big, it was like a dance show, and I was, presenting the songs there for every, I don't even know what it was exactly at that point of time. And then MTV happened. So it was just, I think my life just flowed into this place. And I'll never forget once when I was doing an event at St. Andrews, somebody backstage came and called me and said, there is a lady who's come to meet you. So I said, lady? He said, yeah, she's not like the crowd. She's a bit older than the crowd, but she's insisting on meeting you. And I went there and there was Jyoti ma'am standing. And she said, say thank you.
How lovely. Oh, absolutely lovely.
I'm telling you, every time I think about her, I actually have, I have so much of thankfulness towards her, and so many, I just feel, sometimes you don't know you, but people around you do. And my heart just fills with so much of joy when I think of her. And, I just feel wonderful, because what she did was actually she pushed me out of my comfort zone. Because if she had kept me in college, I probably would have come back and got back into this and not known what I want to do or not put my energies in the right place. So it was just the most amazing thing to have happened. MTV, of course, was the best place to hone your talent, to grow, to meet the most wonderful people. I worked with the best directors, the coolest people. I was working with people who were so talented, who were so individual in thought, and all of us had such different personalities. It was just, I would say, the best time in life.
Lovely.
Yeah, absolutely.
After MTV, you, of course, kids happened, marriage happened, life changed, life went on. And then you retrained completely. You were presenting, of course, but then food became a passion.
So I must tell you, after MTV, actually, I did cricket.
Okay.
And I
How long was that?
I remember in 2002, I was in Sri Lanka for the ICC Champions Trophy. And in 2003 it was in South Africa for the World Cup. So when Sony first hired me, they hired me to do interviews with everyone because that's what I did. And I had left MTV because I think a part of me was a bit tired. I think I also grew up a bit and I could not anymore do the, hey, are you having a great time? So I think I was going through a little bit of change inside me personally. And I never thought that I would ever work in a space that was as satisfying and as much of fun. And I did cricket and it was a blast.
Were you a cricket fan to begin with?
No.
How did you get into that then?
I got there because they needed a presenter who was good with interviews. And they actually hired me as what they put on board as the weather girl.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
So I remember that and I looked at it and I said, But I've never been deterred by what is put on paper or what any label that is given to me, because that's not me. That's your interpretation or whoever interpretation, and I'm absolutely okay with it. That's nothing to do with me. And I remember going there. There was no Google at that time. So you had to read. And you had to read papers. And I had to learn the game. And it was a blast. It was fab. And it was fantastic meeting, the who's who of cricket. And after that, they were like, okay, Maria, we are taking you on for South Africa. So I did the same thing in South Africa, and I just traveled for 2 months and watched all the matches live. And it was fabulous. It was just fabulous. It was exactly what I like doing. It was travel. It was talking to people, interviewing people. And I did a lot of food there because, of course, we were in Africa. So I was working with the South African tourism department, and I was working with Sony. So it was just the kind of life that I love. It was a lot of travel. It was great work. It was wonderful conversations, and it was wonderful food. I could not ask for anything better. After that, I think I did my last piece of work in London. After that, it was also cricket. And then I think I said, okay, this is it. I'm done. I thought I wanted to have kids at that time. And I said, okay, I think now I want to have kids. And so I had kids. I have a boy and a girl. My boy is 19. My girl is 17. When Zeke was about 2.5, I had to feed him food, and I realized that my repertoire of food was very limited. It's like I could make one French toast, one khichdi, and then I would make a baked chicken because my mother made baked chicken, so I used to do that. So I was like, I would keep calling my mom and saying, how do you make this? How do I make soup? I need to give him this. How do I do this? So I started like that. And I think by the time my daughter was born, and by the time she turned 3.5, 4, is when I realized that I think I like food. And at that time, I remember NDTV was doing a show, and Vicky Ratnani was their chef, and they called me to host it. So I was hosting it while Vicky was cooking dessert. He was baking and he was making beautiful desserts. And my first brush with food was Vicky Ratnani.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, this is really good. So I remember simple things like, how do you stir chocolate? I had zero idea. I'd never done this in my life. And I was like, this is so interesting. And then a few months later, they called me for another show called Pressure Cooker, which had Ritu Dalmia and Vicky Ratnani again. And It was a bunch of people who were cooking. And I realized that besides hosting and doing what I was doing, I was so interested in the recipes. I was so interested in what they're doing, how they're doing, where did they learn. And I met this very lovely girl on the show, Shazmeen, who had just studied in London and come back, and she gave me all the details. This was in December. I wrote to them in Jan, and in September I was in college.
in London.
Yeah, I went for 3 months. I did a certificate course in it was in cuisine, in boulangerie, and in bakery. And I came back and I had no idea actually what to do with it, because I came back and I did not go to a restaurant or work in a restaurant because I didn't have that luxury of time. I had 2 tiny children that I had to, steep back into and get into again. And I think I used to write randomly on a blog, and I started getting offers to do a book. So the first offer that came to me, I went to say no. I went and I met them and to say no because I could not understand why I was getting a book offer. Okay. And the second person that met me, she kind of sat down and broke down what she wanted to do with me. And she broke down. I also asked her, I said, why are you calling me? You have so many wonderful chefs in the market and so many who have so much of, so many years behind them in this business. And she said, no, I like what you do. I like how real the food is that you make. And I like what you say about the food and how you link it to life. And she broke it down for me. So I said, thank you, thank you. And I remember when I got back from that meeting, I realized that I did not want to do what the publishing house at that time wanted me to do. And I realized that if I have to do a book, it would be something else. It would not be like that. And I happened to go to the Bhutan Lit Fest as Arshad's +1, where I met my publisher, who's now my publisher. And he was talking to me and he told me, he said, I want to do a book with you. I've read your blogs and I see your recipes. So I was like, this is the third person. I said, maybe I'm doing something right. So I had that conversation and he said, okay, we're on, blah, blah, blah. And he called me in November and he said, so how is it going? This was in May. So I said, how's what going? So he said, how's the book? How's the book coming along? So I said, nothing. So he said, but we had this conversation. I said, yes, but a lot of people say really nice things to me when I meet them. I don't believe everyone, And he said, what? I said, listen. He said, okay, I'm coming to Bombay. I said, okay, I'm coming to meet you. So I went, met him. I remember I met him at the Taj Land's End and we had breakfast. And I said, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this book with me? He said, I told you why I'm doing this book with you. He said, I like what you write. I like the recipes that you do. They're doable. They're easy. They're great explanations. He said, and that's why I want to do this book with you. So I said, you want to think about it for a day? Because think about it. He said, no, Maria, I don't want to think about it. Get cracking.
Contract signed and sealed.
So we didn't actually. No, I'm very bad with contracts. So no contract was signed, but I started work on it. And it went through a long process because I had no idea how to write a cookbook. I didn't know how to write recipes. I just knew how to cook. So then I went through various processes where I said, okay, let's do food that is seasonal, or let's do food from regions, or let's do food like this, and let's do food like that. And then I reached a point where I was just confused about how to do the book. And then I realized, I said, okay, how and why do I cook? So I basically cook for the people that I love. I cook for occasions that I love. So I then decided, okay, fine, let's do it this way. So I divided it from Jan to December. So it has menus, Jan, Feb, March, etc. And for each month, I gave it a theme. And the moment I was able to give it a person or a theme, I was able to write. Then, of course, the wrong process of I worked alone. I had no team. I had nobody. So I had to figure what I want to do, then try it all out, then cook it, then make 3 versions of it, find which is the best, then put down the measurements, then cook.
And then shoot.
So it was quite a long process. And then when I met people after that, they were like, so who all was in your team? And I was like,
a one-woman army.
I remember calling up Ajay and saying, people have teams. He said, yeah, babes, you could get a team. I'm like, I don't even know about these things. Like, I didn't even know. Like, then I got to know that, okay, you have teams and people kind of collaborate with you. But anyway, now that was
So that
in
was
2016. I'm done with that now. Whenever next, I will think of the team.
next cookbook. You will have a team.
I'll have a team.
But you have another book after that.
Yeah.
But we'll come to that later. I want to get into food and what it means to you. Because I see this very, Maria, sorry for interrupting again. I see whenever you write in your Instagram posts, there's a strong focus on family, culture, tradition. This is what I remember, my grandmother. So there's a lot of memory and very strong association with roots coming out in your food. Is that very important to you in how you...
It is. Like all my memories of food are sitting on a dining table, or Christmas with the whole family, church feasts. I remember food on holidays at my grandparents' home in Vasai. My maternal grandparents were farmers. My paternal I never met my grandfather. My grandma. She was a Montessori teacher, but she cooked beautifully. And at a time when nobody knew about mushrooms, I remember in the rainy season, she would go to the garden and come out with a bowl full of mushrooms that she would wash and make mushroom soup. So I was very used to seeing her do that. She and her sister, when her sister was a nun, and she lived at the Carmelite convent, in fact, at St. Teresa's. So when she came home, they would make puff pastry together on the dining table. So I remember lots and lots of dough being rolled, and then they would make keema, and this would be a whole day process. And by evening, we'd all be having this flaky, puff pastry, keema patties. So because I was somebody that never cooked, because I think I started working at a very early age. Mm-hmm. By 17, I was working and doing college and collecting money for myself, because I come from a very, very simple middle-class family, and my parents always told me that the only thing I can give you is a great education, besides the manners, besides all the rest of it that, comes with it. So in my head, I always knew that I will study. And even today, whenever I want to walk somewhere new, I always study it. I need to go down and start at basics. And I need to know everything, and then, of course, build on that. So for me, food has got so many memories that I think my first brush with all of it was your home. It was finding recipes from my mom. I would keep asking her. I would keep asking my uncle. So I started learning like that. I would keep asking friends, in homes that I've loved a recipe. Then when I got into food and when I got interested in food, I used to ask them that I ate that at your house. Can you share it with me? And, so that's how I started cooking. I never started cooking out of a college. That came much later.
Did you ever find that, that your knowledge of food was, I think, very instinctive?
It is.
And did that ever hinder you when,
No.
You never found that an hindrance?
No. So I think the skill that I learned is something that I love. I love the skill that I acquired because I went to Tante Marie, and because I went and I did my diploma at Le Cordon Bleu. That skill, nobody can take away from you. That knowledge, it's very different if I give you a recipe and you follow it. But I think it's very important when you're cooking something, if you know how to rectify it if it goes wrong. So that is something. When you learn the science of food and when you learn the science of baking, that's what you learn. You learn the nitty-gritties that probably somebody who just knows it or then you learn from experience, one of the two.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have my grandmother to teach me, okay? And so for me, I think because I never learned, and today I really feel terrible about the fact that I never went into the kitchen to learn. I never did. I used to always think that I'm studying so much, I'm not going to be sitting in a kitchen,
Yeah.
I'm going to order my food. My mom used to keep telling me that, you have to learn. And I would be saying, I'll order food. I'll take out. And I'm the last person to take out. I love home food. Like, I love home food.
How lovely.
Yeah.
Never studied. And I would tell my mother that, either I'll hire a cook or, we'll do takeout. That's not happened. The cook has happened. And I keep saying, my son will say, maa ke haath ka Maggi noodles yaad aata hai.
So, yeah. So I think, no, even I have a cook. I'm not cooking every day. Please.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think a lot of us do that. But I get into the kitchen if I want to do something special, or the kids, now they're older, so they're hardly there. So I feel, who am I cooking for? I feel, okay, if there's no one to cook for, what the hell am I going in for? So I go in for special occasions. If I'm entertaining, if I'm doing something, that's when I get into the kitchen and I really cook.
How do you come up with new recipes? What sort of
I think ingredients.
I
think it's the ingredients. It's when I go to when I go into the market, and if I find something that is really interesting, so then I get it. I will Google it. I will figure 10 ways to make it, and then I will figure my way from those 10 ways. Mm-hmm. So that's how I think that's how everyone does food, not just me.
Is it? Are you tempted to do fusion? Are you tempted to stick to traditional recipes and add your twist?
So I think I do a little. I do a lot of mix of this and mix of that. Like we East Indians have something called a Vindaloo masala that we make. We also have something called our bottle masala. So most of the time when I'm making baked chicken, I make bottle masala baked chicken.
Lovely.
Or when sometimes I'm rolling pasta, I make my Vindaloo and I put it into the pasta because it tastes really nice. Because I love like any good Indian, I love my pasta spicy, but I like it. But I also like to not mess with pasta sometimes. But I keep trying things out, and I think some things are sacrosanct and you should not. But most things, actually, all of us are never sticking to the traditional way of doing anything. We are putting a bit of us, our personality, all our experiences, all our travel, everything that we've ever tasted into a dish. Mm. So that's how it is.
Lovely. The food scene in India has changed quite a bit from the time you started. And it's changing, I think, by the day now.
Yes.
What are the trends you see coming up?
I think everyone's going back to basics.
Really?
I think everyone's going back to basics. I think everybody, all of us have realized that the food culture that we have here in India, I don't think anyone has as many cuisines and as many flavor palettes. And what I see everyone doing is going back to what they grew up with, going back to the state that they grew up in and the food that they ate, going back to what they know best as a flavor. And I think that's wonderful, because all of a sudden you can sit in one city and you can taste the whole of India there. International food will always have a place, because that's international food. You'll have your basic pastas, you'll have all that. But today there is also, international food is not so generic anymore. Mm-hmm. You get Peruvian food, you get food from various places. Like you get Spanish food, you get tapas, which was so nobody did tapas
at all.
At all. You get really good Chinese.
Yeah, and Greek food has become so
Greek
so
food
popular.
is so big. So the thing is that I feel today there's not just this umbrella of international food. It's very, very, I would say they're getting into the little micro pieces of everything. And I think that's lovely. And there is a Naga belly next to my home that I keep going to. There is something called Aicha Zevan, kitchen. I don't know which is the correct one, where you get beautiful Maharashtrian food. So it's just, it's so wonderful that today there are so many restaurants, and what they're doing is going back to their roots and making the food that is actually flavorful. I think what they're doing now is making it look a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great.
Lovely. For a while, we had this entire thing about molecular cuisine.
I never understood it. I never understood it. I ate it, but I
The
didn't
foam
understand
and the
it.
smoke and
So I understood how to do the foam because I thought it was really fancy and cool, and I loved it because I remember I'd had this cauliflower foam at one of the food festivals in Bombay some years ago, and I was like, wow, how do you do this? And then a few years later, I understood how to do it, but somehow me as a person was never tempted to go down that way because I think my style of cooking is very simple, and I think I'm a very meat and potatoes kind of person. A few years ago somebody said this about me, and I said, why are you calling me a meat and potatoes kind of person? I said, that's so blah. So they said, no, that's not blah,
that's wholesome.
that's wholesome. So I was like, So I actually thought about it later on. A lot of times when you do things, a lot of things get set in your head that, break barriers, and you kind of own some things. And I realized, yes, I like making wholesome food. Like, you can't give me food that is this much. I will eat 20 plates of that. I eat. I'm an eater. So it's like I want to eat well. When I finish with a plate of pasta, I should feel like I can't get up. I like that.
The snake who swallowed the python.
Yeah.
The goat, sorry. Lovely. Food remains a passion.
Yes.
But you brought out a book of poems.
Yes.
How did the poems come about?
So at the same time that I was writing my blogs, that's in 2010, I think I started writing my food blogs. Somewhere in 2011, I started, I don't know, it just came out of me one day. And I remember I wrote this piece called Little Lamp. It's not in my book, but it's the first poem I wrote. And it basically talks about how inside all of us, there is a little lamp. And when nothing else works on the outside, all you have to do is walk in and find that lamp, because it's always burning. And I kept writing. But, and I would put it on my blog sometimes, not put it. I never thought much of it. But when I finished with the food book, Deepa from Om was the one who called me and told me, she said, Maria, you want to do poetry? And I was like, I don't know. So she said, I know you've written a lot. I said, yes, I had 100 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, why don't you send it? So I sent it. And she said, I think we have something special here. So I said, okay. I said, listen, it's very simple. It's really, really simple because I don't write in a language that nobody understands. Neither do I cook in a way that nobody understands. I think I'm a potatoes and meat kind of person. So when you read the poems I write, they may not have any big word that you need to Google or open a dictionary. But I think it comes from the heart, and it resonates with a certain kind of people. And it resonates with me more than anybody else. And Deepa said, okay, so let's get cracking. And I sent her all of them. Then I had Ipshita, who was my editor. She brought it down to 70. From 70, I think it came to 50. 50, it came to 40. And she said, Maria, 40 is a sweet number. We're going to stick with this. We're going with this. I said, okay, fine. Then they would send me the transcript and say, go through it, any changes, anything. I would read it and I would hate at least half of them. So I would say, no, I'm sending, no, we're cancelling this, we're cancelling that, we're doing this. I'm writing a new one. And it's not that I can sit and I write. It's like a download. I don't know how to explain this to you. I might sound completely cuckoo to you. But it's like a download. It's like I'm sitting somewhere. So most of the time, if I'm sitting in nature, okay, is when my mind is the most creative. And then, maybe a movie I saw, a conversation I've had, something that I've spoken about, something that I'm feeling, it all just finds a way out in a poem. Mm-hmm. And I think during lockdown, I redid half the book.
Okay.
Finally. This is 24, no? So in 23 it released. So in 22 December, they were like, we are not sending you the book. I said, don't send it then. I said, because when you send it to me, I hate 3/4 of it at least. And then I'm like, oh God, this is terrible. I want to do this again. So they were like, okay. So I said, okay, send it one last time. I made a few more changes. And I said, don't send it. I said, even if I beg of you not to send the book, don't send it. Just let it go to print. So they said, okay, send us a mail saying go to print.
Huh.
They do that.
You need that.
So I was like, then finally I said, go to print. And it was out in a month. So it was that easy actually.
Lovely.
But
were you a poetry reader by any chance?
Yes, I used to as a kid. Then I think once I was up and about and working, I continued reading. But I think poems took a back seat. You know, I would sometimes flip through a book, but I don't think I would read as many poems as I would normally just read books.
Okay.
So, and I like fiction. And sometimes I like reading, a little deeper books. But I mostly used to read because I used to love to be transported to a place. So as a kid, I think by the time I was in my first standard, I had finished reading Grimm Brothers 100
Fairy tales.
stories. Yeah. And so I had a very active and alive imagination. So I used to write stories as a kid. And they would be in some rough book, I don't even know where. I used to constantly be writing about dragons and,
princesses and
somebody who is coming with a sword, because I was reading all
that stuff. That's right.
So, yeah, and then I think I forgot about writing or about all of this till I think my mind was calm and I was in a space where all this comes back. And, I think it, like I said, it just flowed in this direction. And so we have this poetry book.
And would you say the blogs were a kind of riyaz for your writing? The discipline of writing I'm talking about.
No, I have no discipline in writing. No. So I would, whenever I cooked, I would write.
Okay.
I would write a blog and I would put it out. But discipline is not something I have. I'm very hardworking, but I'm not disciplined.
That's an interesting combination.
Yeah. So if you put me in a box and say in the next 15 days I want this ready, I'll beg myself out. I'll say no, I can't do, or no, oh no, please. I've realized the moment you put walls around me, I can't function. Something inside my head just explodes. That's why I loved MTV. That's why I loved cricket, because we were never told to be a certain way. It was a dream job. I was told to be exactly who I am. And I don't know how to be anyone else. So, people may think it's repetitive, or people may think, oh, she's not changed much she's still doing the same thing. But the inner growth is completely different from what it's going to be on the outside. I just feel that when a job is given to you, you need to do the job exactly like how it needs to be done, and give in your best there.
Lovely.
And that's what I do.
Lovely. So now there's food, there's poems. Is there fiction on the anvil?
Can I tell you something very truthfully? I'd written even if I may say so I love traveling. So I wrote this love story, but because I really did not know how to put it on iCloud, I lost the whole story, the whole book, which had just 3 chapters left. My computer crashed and I realized I had not saved it.
Oh Lord.
So it went.
No, but
so I'm thinking maybe that was not meant to be.
No.
Maybe it was really not nice.
No. That means it has to come out in a new avatar.
Maybe it has to come out in a new way. And it was really what I did with that was I just picked all the places that I knew, and I have actually walked those streets and been there and eaten there and stayed there. So all of that was in the book. So it was more like a travel love story. And I lost. So I don't know what's happening with that. But one of the things that I want to do is I want to make a community food book for the East Indian community. I'm an East Indian. And I think as a community, we're a very tiny community. And I think if we don't preserve all the grandma's recipes, I think it's all going to go.
I'm half East Indian.
Yeah. But I've realized no grandma wants to share their real recipe.
No, they will not. They will not tell you.
They won't tell you. They always tell
plead.
you can't get it. And it's so sad. And I just feel
Even
that food needs to go on. And if it, one day this will happen. This will happen.
Basic as a fugia, they will not tell you.
I'll tell you.
It's a secret recipe. They will not tell you.
No,
I'll take it from you.
It's in my book.
Okay.
There are fugias in my book. So that is one thing that I really, really want to do is a community book.
You should.
On East Indian cuisine.
Lovely.
Because it is so lovely and it has so many facets to it, because us East Indians are basically from Maharashtra. So there's such a big, influence of Maharashtrian cuisine. Yet it has got some influence of Portuguese food and it has some influence of the British East India Company. So it's such a wonderful cuisine and it's such a small, I would not say it's small, it's actually pretty varied, but hardly any real recipes around, except if you have the book. You have the East Indian book that is, they have many, they keep printing it. So I have 3 of those. But yeah, besides that, I would like home recipes from grandmas who cook, from mothers who cook, from people who do catering. And put everybody's numbers at the back saying, if you want catering for weddings, then this person makes wines, this person gives, dabbas. I want to do something like that. And I think that is a pet project that I need to start.
Please start, because I think we need it. I think East Indian cuisine is really so much better than most of the cuisine.
And nobody knows about it.
That's a tragedy.
So that is something that's really like our simple potato chops, or like my mom used to make a snake gourd with a keema on the inside. And, I'm like, nobody does this. So let's see. I hope I can do something with it.
All the very best for that.
You.
And all the very best for all that you do coming forth. More poetry, hopefully. And that fiction book you've
lost.
And you're going to rewrite it. Thanks for coming on the show, Maria.
Thank you, Kiran. Thank you.
It's been a lovely conversation.
Thank you.